It's really bright and icky, I think, in here. Anyway, hello everybody.
Hi.
It's nice to sort of see you. I'm Marg Walker. Glad to have you, many new faces and many folks that I'm familiar with. Glad to see you here. Welcome to the David Show Midstream Meeting Series. Hi, Angela. There's a spot for you.
Oh, no.
We're just getting rolling. So, welcome if you're new, if you've been here a billion times, or 100 or whatever. Glad to see you here. If you're not familiar with the place and would like to use the restroom, it's up down the hall around the bend, so easy to find. Oh, you're not hearing me. How about if I use the microphone? Would that be
brilliant?
Okay. I need coaching. Thank you. And does this carry if I'm this far away from it? Okay. Okay. Let's see about. All right. We'll just see how this works for our readers. So thank you for coming. What else do I need to say? This is we always record these sessions, and they're going to be available on the Midstream Meeting Series website in due time. So if you want to just relive the evening, you can do that. In a bit, we'll pass around a sign-up sheet if you are not currently on the mailing list and would like to be. And the way we use the mailing list is just to let you know when the next reading will be. We don't share the list with anybody, so if you're interested in keeping track of our work here and want to come again and again, which we hope you will, sign up. That would be great. It could get hot in here. We could open the door. Anybody who feels like you're getting uncomfortable. Sometimes it gets noisy in the hall. I don't think it will tonight. So we'll open the door if you feel like you're suffocating, or short of that.
Those windows are open, by the way.
Those windows are open. Oh, good. Oh, good. Yeah, that's helpful. We always begin the evening with the host reading a poem, and I will do that in a moment, but I want to first say this is actually my last time of hosting. We have a team of 4 hosts that work with Midstream, and I'm rotating off, and Tracy Youngbaum is going to be joining us as a host, and I'm always grateful to see new hosts come along and bring different connections and different ideas for the series, so we're excited to have her join us, and her first time of hosting will be this fall in September, so we welcome Tracy aboard. This is a poem I wrote. This is a poem I wrote maybe a couple of years ago. And for those of you who enjoy reading poetry and or writing poetry, you probably have had this experience where something that you've written or something that you've read and read again years later makes sense in a new way. And this is one of those for me. I wasn't thinking about Metro Surge when I wrote this a couple of years ago, for example. But I was thinking about climate change. And what I was experiencing at the time was the Canadian wildfires, which, just the fires across the Pacific Northwest that are that affect us here in our own way, in our own little worlds. That's where this came from. And it's called Small Things. Smoke from Canadian forest fires that clogged our skies with acrid gray particulate has cleared at last, at least for now. I step outside and simply breathe. See how the sparse blooms stagger along the sidewalk's edge. Winter drought killed so much of what we counted on to endure. And now the fires. Everything points to vulnerability, and don't you hate that sometimes? How easily things we take for granted can be taken. But today, I have faith in the regenerative power of small things. Even now, children released from indoor play streak by on their bikes. In the charred forest 1,000 miles away, wildflowers begin to spread their fragile beauty for the pioneer trees that will follow. And here, in the unblurred blue above us, a single cloud drifts, innocent of everything. Once at our Thanksgiving table, when his turn came, a child said he was thankful for air. We sat a long time in silence, breathing in the essence of bounty we had failed until then to praise. All right, and now on to the lineup for whom you have come. Our first reader. Right, it'll be fine when I leave the podium because I don't know how to work this thing. Can you turn it? You can turn a little. Will this be a little better? I don't know. You tell me.
Go a little closer.
Maybe.
Closer and turn it up, maybe.
Uh-oh. No, I've done it. This is why Frank sits in the front row. All right, well, we're going to try it from here. Is that picking up?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, our first reader, Jane Dickerson, earned a Master of Arts degree at the University of Maryland, College Park, where she studied with the late Stanley Plumlee. She has taught English at the secondary and college levels and has been a substitute teacher at the Minnesota State Academy for the Deaf. She won the Academy of American Poets University and College Poetry Prize while at Maryland, as judged by Ellen Bryant Voigt. She has contributed twice at the Bread Loaf Writers Conference in Vermont. Her first book, The Orange Tree, Early Poems, was a finalist in the Minnesota Independent Publishers Association contest in 2016. Jane has published poems in Gyroscope, Nimrod International Journal, Salt, and Siva. Is that how you say it? Siva. We'll call it Siva. Sieva. She resides in St. Paul after having lived in numerous regions of the northern and southern United States. She mentors with the Minnesota Prison Writers Workshop. Welcome, Jane.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Let's see, my husband is back there. He's an expert at this. It's okay?
Sounds good.
Oh, good. All right. Thank you for that nice introduction. Sunday was Mother's Day, and the mothers here, I know it's always kind of bittersweet. Your kids are grown; they're not cute anymore, and they haven't been cute for a long time. This poem is about my mom. It's called My Mother's Hands. My mother's hands folded on her chest as she rests supine, listening to her books for the blind. My own hands folded when I lie down to sleep. Now veined, skin thinned like hers, the palmate bones showing through. Hers in the last days on the respirator, folded the same, and in the box at the church, her last home. She, my first home, where folded inside her belly, I began. There's another home poem, pretty different. Home is also the ruby throat, looking for sugar sap in the fluted flower on the balcony, the black and orange aureole that scoops the purple jelly and stabs the slight fruit for sustenance, and that slightly yellow bird beyond the green, hunting insects in the road. The bird you recognize but cannot name or hear, but for the want of which would be to know a diminution, another loss in your earthly home, because without them, you and the world are undone. Almost all of my family, except for me, was born in West Virginia. And this poem is about where my grandmother lived in Morgantown, and the individual named is Pop Williams, and Pop is no relation, he was a neighbor. West Virginia, Pop Williams. Too young to play ball on my grandmother's lot, I perched on Pop's knee for the after-supper games. He smelled the smell of a working man's salt, and sweat damped his shirt with the tang of old cigarettes. Those August evenings, I sat content on his ample knee. He was squat and square, spark plug-like and kingly, his odor hovering in the rose humidity of the open field. My siblings' memories have fogged, no registry of him. They had each other, but he was royalty to me. Sometimes he played horseshoes with the other men by the woods and river, What do the siblings remember if none of this? Did our grandfather play ringers with the men? They cannot say. Like Pop, the other men were laborers who threw the relics of their farm days near the falling banks of the Monongahela River. My grandfather may have been another sort, tie tucked into his shirt. The games are clear, but the men Pop horsed around with, indistinct. That fertile field lies inert beneath lifeless asphalt, old horses' shoes and all. The cries of bases stolen, ringers thrown have died away. My mother would know about her father, but she is buried too. All are gone, gone to where I cannot say, but flown. Summer nights, shouting, laughter, timelessness, when Pop Williams was alive and bumped me on his knee. No one else can remember what I can smell and see. Twilight haze mixing with cigarettes and sweat. Oh, thank you. That form of poem is called a pantoum, so you heard a lot of repetition. This poem is called Inheritance. My mother figures in this one as well. Every woman had a box of buttons where she stored the extras from the skirts, blouses, dresses, and coats she sewed, saving them for years until they were packed in bags for the Goodwill when her house was cleared and emptied of her. I know this is true because I handled more than one woman's household laid out on the curb. I don't know what happened to my mother's button box, a rectangular affair that had held a crumb-filled chocolate egg and was decorated with small farm animals in spring pastels. I played on the rug by the sewing machine, dipping my hand in and out, letting the plain, the odd-shaped and lacquered jewels slide through my fingers. When I became an adult with children whose clothes I sewed to kill the time while watching them, I too kept buttons, dozens in a lidded basket, including those I found among a woman's half-finished quilts. One night at my parents' home, my mother paid me a compliment, but then qualified the praise, which piqued my father, who'd snorted and said what she'd done was like taking the buttons off the coat. She huffed a little, and I was filled with suspicion when she said it meant to strip the buttons from a garment before giving it away. Marg and I were talking earlier about gardening, and I have a raised bed behind the building where I live. And this poem is called Mirabile Dictu, which is what my high school, functions teacher maybe said whenever I had the answer correct. Wonderful to relate. Deep in a rotted hole in a chest-high post in a corner of the garden lie 6 small speckled eggs as small as the end of my smallest finger, so small and unexpected I could hardly breathe. After hoeing and planting, I dare to look again. A chickadee huddles there, tail flanked against the post's rough wall, and though her onyx eyes are open, she ignores me. I don't tell anyone what I've seen and check the nest only now and then. I find a flat stone to shade part of the opening from the sun. It's already a hot spring. One day I see her dive in to brood the clutch. Days later, all the eggs have hatched. Naked chicks with big beaks and bulging eyes lie haphazard. It looks like all 6 of them, though it's hard to see. I'm as inconspicuous as a tall woman can be. Blind, the young are covered in fine gray down. One open mouth, flanged with white, cries for food. It hasn't rained in weeks. I spray the post, hoping droplets will fall in. The babies grow feathers, begin to look like chickadees. I worry how they'll fledge so deep a nest, but that's a human thing. The next time I check, they're gone. They're pretty smart. I'm going to read a couple of poems from my first book. For a long time I thought only, called The Orange Tree. The first one, this is the first one that appears in the book. It's called Robin Moth. A hand-me-down. The next-door neighbor's boyfriend tore the paper casement from the Rape Times, saying he'd throw it out if I didn't take it, and though he's kind, I was sure he would. In its pint jar on the windowsill in the half-dark, silk dry and leaf gray, all winter, almost all the spring. I looked at it, turned the jar, forgot till May. It seemed so dead, doubtful it would survive. But when it emerged, the glass was smeared with fluid where it crawled, flapped if it could, dragging its small space. And I thought of nearly everything I'd ever helped destroy. A panic long forgotten, childhood. And so I freed it in the garden, where I watched an hour, then two, saw it pump its abdomen, such hope, trying to cure its damaged wings, veins furrowed and cramped, one wedded to the other. Oh, it had a life, I'm sure, beyond all reason and a will. I had a picture book Cecropia to compare, what it could never be, suspended from a twig, that which had been intended, to rise, to fly, its great antennae, fern-like, forest meant for night, and those large wings to carry it, to food, to love, over distance, denied, because of him, because of me, wings half formed, dismissed. I think, I'll read the sequel in the fall. It's called This Fall Begins. With two red leaves outside the window and the sill, where the moth's cocoon lay dormant in its jar all last year, the sky cloudless, and with each hour, each day, more blue. It starts this way, with just the outer leaves, the branch gone red until the limbs inflame, the sky all brightness, and then the tree. This heat in the eye burns clean and clear. Glory is a sign rising from the outstretched hand, lifted in an arc across the face. Fingers pulled on fingers splayed, fingers waving, a spirit drawn from the uncupped hand. Two hands show praise, touch twice, unheard, then rise above the head and draw two circles, a single voice. They clap again, and again they rise, circling wider, brighter, louder. Outside the tree, a blaze of red, the sky so blue, the branches pull and pull. Each leaf lifts, finger-like and luminous, touching first the palm and then the open air. Oh, I got a little time. This is the poem for which the book Phoenix Birds is named. It was the way it was spelled by Ken Kesey in a letter he wrote to his friends on the death of his son Jed in 1984. Phoenix Birds. The hardest part, he wrote the gang of friends who couldn't make the funeral, was when they'd had to sign the papers to let the doctor harvest the boy's organs before his life had ended. The boy whose brain had been dead for days after the wrestling team bus had floated off a cliff. The boy whose skull his father had packed with fresh snow in plastic bags in the hospital to slow the swelling. The boy who seemed to show signs of life just minutes before he flatlined. The boy whose box they'd hand-built from pine with a lining the women stapled in. A Tibetan brocade with gilded phoenix birds, and a satin pillow on which to rest his head, made from the down of a swan one had mistaken for a snow goose and had buried quickly, but not before the plucking. The boy whose kidneys, the day he died, saved 2 young somebodies. In all, 12 parts of him passed on, including his perfect corneas. A boy whose father wrote about the prayers they'd said, the songs they'd sung, and who ended the letter to his friends. And the red-winged blackbirds sing in the budding green gage plum tree, by way of showing how he was weathering his grief. Maybe just one more, and then it's a reader's aid. Well, this is one of my favorites. It's the first poem in the book. It's called Reverie at the Other Como. I'm glad to find my bench deserted, the park too, for that matter, because it's a weekday and cloudy and chill enough to stay the walkers, though not the lovers who just drove by. The birds are scarce, not one wing in the trees or on the lake in this city, where a century ago someone thought to dig a lake and name it for the one in Italy I doubt I'll see. Here, under an awkwardly leaning pine, my hope of finding any bird diminished. Equably decide it doesn't matter. Become philosophical, thankful for that which lies behind. The other day, an Easterner wrote about a bird, to him mysterious, finally deciding it was an old world warbler. Impossible. Did he see something wished for? I've done that so many times. Okay. Thank you very much. Oh well, it's over.
Thank you, Jane.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jane. And she read from each of her 2 books, which are over here for you to peruse afterwards or buy if you wish. Sagirah, did you read books tonight? No. No? All right. Well, so we'll have James to look at if you wish. I am going to send around a sign-up sheet. Hope it won't be distracting as you're trying to listen in. This is for your emails if you wish to be on our list. All right. Our next reader is Nathan Cousins. He's a local actor, musician, poet, and most importantly, husband to Stephanie and papa to Judith, Daisy, and Gideon. If he isn't daydreaming about escaping to the North Shore, you'll find him enjoying early mornings before the house wakes up and helping people finance their dreams by getting into homes through the mortgage business he runs with his brother. He has self-published 3 chapbooks that he distributes to family and friends. Please welcome Nathan.
Hi, everybody.
Hi.
I don't do this very much, and I wasn't sure what to submit in the bio. And the term that came to mind when I was reading everyone else's beautiful bios was laccolades. I'm going to soldier on. I wanted to start with a quote that I just remembered on the way here, and it might have been read at the last Midstream, or I read it somewhere. I don't remember where I picked it up, so if it's a repetition, forgive me. But we all obviously have come to poetry or turned to poetry at different times for different reasons. This just felt like it really sums up kind of what's drawn me to it. I've always written, but I feel like I kind of came back to poetry during COVID, which was a great time to come to art or return to art. So this is by Christian Wyman. He says, "Let us remember that in the end we go to poetry for one reason, so that we might more fully inhabit our lives and the world in which we live them. And that if we more inhabit these things, we might be less apt to destroy both." This is called When You Wake Too Early. I think this might be the only poem I'm reading about my kids. And in the wonderful poem about, or referencing gardening earlier, I was reminded that someone told me a long time ago, you can either garden or raise young kids. I do not have a garden. When you wake too early. When you wake too early, I tell you, sweetheart, it's too early to get up. You protest, always. And I give you options. Back to bed, or listen to stories. This is me protecting you from myself, before I've had time to soften to the world and its myriad tiny intrusions. You now settled on the couch with Mercy Watson, and I in the firelight of the darkened sunroom with a book of poems, until you shuffle in and vault yourself onto the couch, crash next to me, burrow under my blanket, and whisper your request. Read it to me. Thank God for vanity plates. When it appeared at my 12 on an anxious AM commute, cheerfully subverting the term vanity plate, be joyful on the hatch of the Honda CR-V. Felt like a sign, less imperative, and more of an open hand with the slightest, almost imperceptible beckon. Winter Psalm. I find I write a lot about the winter. I don't know if anyone's read T.D. Mishke's Winter Song, is what it's called. Collection of prose, short stories, and poems, kind of a love song to northern winters, which is sometimes necessary for northern winters. So this is one of those. Winter Psalm. I remember in the springtime, my heart was full and singing. Now a threadbare rattling leaf on a bare tree barely clinging. When all life covered in deathly sleep, my eyes with frozen dew. Will this heart ever sing again? What does the winter do? Mother. I have a scar from my mother, a hole right in my center, where the source once was, where life flowed freely, now severed, now forced to scrape, to beg, to be sustained. Maybe what's ahead, what we are all aiming for, is to go back to that, to swim again in that kind of tender heldness. I can only hope that is what comes next. What's a reading without another bird poem? So, not to diminish bird poems. It's one of my favorite things. A bird to you. Whimsical, ominous, or wise beyond us, could you be more flush with meaning? Calm, catching currents a mile above our worries, a shrinking kite taking line, or a dart piercing through space from the eaves and always singing. Are you made of air or just magic? And what is the anatomy of a feather? Defying all the laws that keep me here, pull me down and in toward the dark, molten heart of the only home I know. And if I ever catch you by the wild eye, would I know the truth and recognize that glint made of the same hint of stardust a brotherhood, perhaps not of blood, but of all the rest that we share. This air, these stunted pectoral muscles, if only to trust them like you. Give me what you have, at any whim, fear, or sheer delight, to lift the arms, and with a slight crouch, to thrust down and lift, to rise. This one goes out to my friend Jeremiah in the back. It's an inside joke, but you're all a part of it now. If we ever got matching tattoos, sorry, it's called So Far, So Good. If we ever got matching tattoos, it would probably have to be of the drawing your daughter made, the whimsical cartoon figure upside down falling from a fifth-story window. His body rigid and uniform, with a few wisps of line at his heels, signaling his speed, and giving a thumbs up, down. Wry smile and reveling in the wind at his ears, plummeting toward the same end that comes for us all. Head to the ground, feet cheerfully in the air. I forgot to look at my watch when I started. I'm just going to assume I'm 10 minutes in. All right, this is called The Unwinnable Game. The insurmountable mountain with new foothills growing every day. The myriad dishcloths and washcloths and terry cloths and separated piles of undies. Sensual ones, sensible ones, the cutest little girl brief and boy boxer brief ones. I turn over in my mind what a life would be like when everyone got a bin where all their freshly washed and bunched up unfolded clothes were tossed, as I carefully line up corners of a tea towel with a chicken on it, making a perfect square in a stack of perfect squares. And while this meditation in tedium is often nothing but a gentle necessary doldrum, I find myself thanking each piece for its service, for covering our shame, for cleaning our messes, for that which blesses our bodies as we animate each one by careful choice each morning. I'm slowing to regard each piece, to realize what I'm feeling toward this ragtag pile, these mismatching misfits, this colorful array that's been dumped on me today. It's love. You chose wisely. There are mornings when the cupboard opens to the odd family of misfit mugs that somehow belong to each other. And I shy away from that one, as if it's the trophy to a merit badge I've not yet completed. World's greatest dad. A holy grail that I can proudly sip from only when I feel I've earned it. Which is when exactly? But this morning, I'm stepping out in faith, like Indiana. Not a conqueror's confident declaration, but a sip of today's small, quiet hope. There's a couple more. Outage. Pacing a room of windows at 2 a.m., your tiny body bundled still and silent, finally, while the sweeping brooms of trees, wild in the wind, fling their foliage at every surface like wet spaghetti under the strobing blankets of night sky. And from where we stand, swaddled in this room together, with your thunderous dreams, we watch the neighbors' porch lights before we can notice our own go out. Silences. There are as many as there are Haagen-Dazs flavors. The one just after the car engine is stilled, and following the twist, drip, drip, drip of the shower faucet. There is the forest, deaf with snow, the humid night and distant highway, and after sex, of course, all breath and buzz and spent anticipation. But few are so pregnant with potential than this. Before the dawn, when the world waits to be born, the crowning head of the sun, the inevitable hum of the day's labor, and the dream of what the day will grow up to be. One more. Thanks for listening. Colonized. I am not myself. Or at least more than half of me is not. For I play host to trillions of tiny colonists. These myriad microbial tenants in residence, the community we carry in our hearts, on our backs, on our skin, in our gut. What a gift to never be alone.
Thank you, Nate. That was Nathan Cousins. Our next reader is Sagirah Shahid. She's a Pushcart Prize-nominated Black Muslim poet and performance artist from Minneapolis. Sagirah is a recipient of several awards, residencies, and fellowships, including from the Loft Literary Center, the Minnesota Center for Book Arts, Wisdom Waves, the African American Leadership Forum, and the Twin Cities Media Alliance. In 2020, Sagirah was one of 23 artists selected by Muslim advocates and the Shangri-La Museum of Islamic Art, Culture, and Design to be featured in the American Muslim Futures virtual exhibit. Sagirah's poetry and prose are published in Mizna, Winter Tangerine, Prose Online, Cora, Juked, Paranoid Tree, Parhelion, About Place Journal, and elsewhere. And just recently, Sagirah was awarded the Light Scatter Press Prize for her forthcoming book, Spirit, an African American Muslim Lyric. Welcome, Sagirah.
I was burying my toes in Lake Superior's white sand when I noticed her. The little mosquito gliding herself to the soft and fertile valleys of my forearm. Where her baby daddy was, heaven only knows. The mosquito dabs my flesh before piercing it to take what she needed without permission. If I were sad, it dried up and became all about her and her hunger. I could swat at her if I wanted to, but she takes her time, allowing her belly to balloon with my crimson blood. It reminded me of when I was a little girl. I wanted to live in the future more than I wanted to live. Mosquitoes spend the majority of their lives underwater, wingless little trumpets clinging to the surface. And it's a 3-hour bus ride to Duluth. I still haven't dipped my toes in the waters that remind me of you. The mosquito has finished her meal, but she hasn't moved. I think she's staring into my eyes. If I were lonely, it evaporated and became all about the itch on my forearm. My mosquito left without saying goodbye, but I hear her humming the way some mothers do. If I enter the lake and pretend we weren't just there summers ago, teasing me about peeing in it, but I emerged like my mosquito sister, too heartbroken to waste a cool summer's ghost. It's been a long time coming, but I know right now change will come. Oh, I know change. When I say George, you say Floyd. George?
Floyd.
You can do better than that. When I say George, you say Floyd. George?
Floyd.
George?
Floyd.
Enough seen. A remembrance of George Floyd. Minneapolis. I am learning there is no intercession from flames or any ash-bound cinder celebrating the mural before the man. A rain-soaked teddy bear welts into a barrage of dying chrysanthemums, azaleas, sunflower sprouts flung into sawed-down milk cartons and water bottles, cardboard poems and unlit candles. These the names of beings still within the reach of my melanated hands. We were cornered by the city's hatred for us, as if the default pandemic weren't already inflaming our blackness. In Minnesota, white people stare too hard, expect you to graciously gift each shut chair down your face as they record and peacocks tell their solidarities and sympathies, and I sincerely hope you remember his name. Remember our names and the tent cities they bulldozed. These parks our siblings lived in, while woke white folks built condos and Hell's Angels revved up their bikes. In the backdrop, white Salvation Army men with their khaki shorts and center parts hand us guitars slung words of scripted freedoms. Biblical burgers none of us wanted to ask, while our chosen names kept trying to outlive specters, spectators. It's been a long time coming, but I know. I know that poem's hard, so I want to give you some love. you, if you are willing and you want to take your arms and wrap them around yourselves. Can you do that for me? And as you do that, there's some lovely rain happening. You can close your eyes and you can breathe in and focus on the rain and give yourself a big, juicy hug. Because I don't want to write this down. I want to tell you how I feel. This is another George Floyd poem. I call this Held. There's an article about Floyd written by someone who co-hosts a foodie podcast with a friend of mine. The friend gave me a long, deliberate hug the last time I saw him. It was by chance on 38th Street at the Co-op. And this is before COVID-19, before the president confessed to downplaying the pandemic, before the National Guard entrenched, rolled past 38th Street in Chicago, before 38th in Chicago became a memorial site, before Thomas Lane stomped out the corner on 38th Street in Chicago and unholstered his gun, pointed it into Floyd's face before Floyd mentioned his PTSD and his fear and begging, before Chauvin's knee and his life, before the minutes and seconds. There was this article, and it mentions that Floyd was a hugger, 6 foot something, shy as a bird. Floyd was a hugger. That's what his friends and coworkers said about him. And I wonder if the writer of the article wanted to hug each person who shared that fact. Floyd the hugger wanted to hug these friends of Floyd and hug each person who held themselves in that moment. And I wonder sometimes if each hug somehow ricochets itself back to all of you, to us, to the friend and his coworker, the host of this podcast and the writer of the article. And what if, while listening to the podcast, what if we heard a voice echoing a need to hold on to? A need to be held. Does that mean that we are all just so close and afraid of the way that felt? Schools. No child should have to see the world blister. Somehow there's always a gun or the idea of a gun at night. My sister tells the child within her that the world has trees, that the bullets never reach the little bees, before language can bloom within the child. The ghost of every school makes the night wild. Now, Nathan, I'm going to do a bird poem. I like birds too. And mostly because, I don't know, I feel like hummingbirds are so beautiful. And a hummingbird's heart is too large for its body. And its swift movements are like a buzz, a flicker of keyhole light. When a hummingbird builds its nest, it builds it with spider web and saliva so sweet. Its tongue must be marinated in all that nectar. And I wanted to be the one hoisting a little toddler from upward, hollyhock in hand, imagination pollinated and hemming onto You all know the indigenous name for Minnesota? No? Somebody has to, right? We're all Minnesotans here, right? All right, I'm going to teach it to you. It's called Minnesota Makoche. This is Dakota language. And that word means basically where like the water reflects the skies, which makes sense because the land is like 2,000 lakes. I have 2 more poems for you all. This one's called Minnesota Makoche. And I'll tell you a story about this poem and how I wrote it briefly, because I feel like I have some time. I do have some time. Are you all familiar with the poet Mossab Abu Taha? This is great. So he's a Palestinian poet, and he was kidnapped. He was friends with a poet that you might have heard of, Rafat al-Arir, who wrote the poem If I Must Die. You all probably have heard that poem. And he was friends with him. And anyways, Mossab has a local publisher. He's published with milkweed, and in the early onset of the escalation in Gaza and the genocide in Gaza, Mossab was actually kidnapped by the IDF. And there was a period of time where a lot of local writers, especially people connected to milkweed and other communities, like Vizna, were wondering, like, where is he? Is he okay? And how can we support him? And eventually he was released and thankfully was able to get out and has been relocated, him and his family, safely, and he lives in the United States, teaches, tours, all this kind of stuff, and advocates for his people. I am a part of an arts organization called Vizna, or I was at the time, and we were able to get Mossab to come to Minneapolis to do a reading about a year or 2 after this, maybe a year after this. And it was just one of those moments where I think you have like hairs on the back of your neck and all these things, because we had a panel discussion with a local indigenous historian, Nick Estes, and there was like this really beautiful discourse of like poetry and music and community, and it was beautiful to like center indigenous communities here and indigenous communities in Palestine, and to have this discourse in relationship to land. And so, end that conversation, I wrote this poem as a reaction. Minnesota culture. Land where water reflects the skies. Solidarity from the sky to the river. What I look like, not evaporating my fears for you. June told us, I said, I loved you, and I want a genocide to stop. We will become monsoons if we have to for you. Love, oh requirements of my shattered heart. Fly your kites with earth beneath your toes, and wind above your curls. Oh persistent little laughters, may the bombs of my cruel country never reach you. From the Mississippi to the Mediterranean Sea, from the Mediterranean Sea to the Sahara, from the Sahara to the Nile, from the Nile to Congo, from Congo to Venezuela, from Venezuela to Cuba, from Cuba to Greenland, from Greenland to D.C., from D.C. to Iran, from Iran to Turtle Island, Minnesota culture, solidarity from the sky to the river. June Jordan once said, I was born black. I was born a black woman, and now I am become a Palestinian. So, this is the day I crush diamonds in my fist and wipe the blood off my hands for Palestine, for Sudan, for Congo, for Palestine. You are not alone. And this is the day I tell Sudan, thought up. It was 2019, And I was out there in them streets because you stood up on a white car, like the youth of my people, stood up on police cars. LA, Rodney King uprising overlaid upon your white gown, gold earring as you chanted, revolution for Sudan, for Palestine. You are not alone. And this is the day I rip the chains off my incarcerated siblings. The day I feed my children laughter instead of pipelines to prisons. For my incarcerated siblings. For Palestine. You are not alone. And this is the day I celebrate the first African nation in the Caribbean that sent the colonizing, enslaving French back home to their armpits of a nation. For Haiti, for Palestine, you are not alone. And for the youth of the Galilee, and for the youth of the West Bank, and of Gaza, tweeting Ferguson instructions on how to resist yesterday, today, tomorrow, and the next day. You are not alone, my dearly beloveds. You are not alone, my dearly beloveds. We are not alone, my dearly beloveds. You are not alone. See us. See them. We are intertwined. Thank you all.
This is the moment of the evening where we pass a little basket around. If you have a few spare bucks to put into it, the church will appreciate it. This is a space that's provided for free for Midstream Reading Series, and we're very grateful for that, so we like to help out a little bit where we can. And thank you. Needing a little deep breath here before we move on.
Cheers on
Your kid and I, we just switched it so well.
Our last reader tonight is Brian Newhouse. He's the past managing director of Minnesota Public Radio, American Public Media's classical programming, and the retired associate vice president of individual giving for the Minnesota Orchestra. He holds degrees in voice and English from Luther College and had an active professional singing career alongside his work in radio. He earned an MFA in creative writing from Hamline University and won a Peabody Award for writing the radio documentary, The Mississippi River of Song. He's the author of the memoir, A Crossing, and lyricist for many choral composers. He and his family live in St. Paul and are active members of Unity Church. Please welcome Brian Newhouse.
Thank you.
Thank you, Marg. I'm going to maybe try to use no microphone. You okay in the back? Okay, I'll use my outdoor voice here. It's a strange thing to be here because I write poems only for myself. I'm not published. They are the work of early morning scribbles, with a couple of very public exceptions, which we'll get to in a bit. But to be standing here and to be reading these things that were never meant for people, it's a very strange experience, but let's go there, okay? This one is called First Lesson. When she pressed my thumb gently down on C, I peered around the music rack into the piano and discovered row on row of pews, a single pillar miraculously holding up the soaring, slanted black roof. And I was the only soul inside, my middle C rising from this sanctuary, a single syllable prayer in a language without words that I finally knew was home. This one is called The Sword of the Lord. He cradles a 2x4 with a gas-soaked corn cob nailed to one end, and I hold the jittering ladder as he climbs no-handed into the apple tree. Squinting into the spring dawn, not sure what in the branches is blossom, what is sun, I smell diesel fuel, and I smell my grandmother's wrist sifting through these golden, delicious petals. Army worms. Last fall we spat apples, soured by their tunnels. Army worms had marched high into this tree and pitched their tent of gray webs big as a wheelbarrow in the boughs. High overhead now, he lights a match on his front tooth, touches it to the cob, and takes the last rung up. Most everything about him frightens me. How he disappears each month behind a newspaper called The Sword of the Lord. And from the far side of the living room, I worry where the Lord will swing that sword, into whom and why. My father stabs the flaming spear into the web, and its walls roll up in seconds. Worms fall from their fortress, lit as if they'd drunk kerosene all night. They streak past my face into the silence of the grass. That's one that I'm not sure it's done yet. You think that one is like, does that need more? Does it need less?
It's fine.
It's a little work in progress. Okay. My mother married 62 years. She had a long widowhood also, and she was living independently for decades after my dad died near the village near northern Illinois where I grew up, in cornfields. And she was mowing her own lawn on a gigantic John Deere garden tractor when she was 93 years old. And then the decline happened quite quickly. And neighbors rallied around her, my siblings rallied around her, meals brought in, cleaning, and that sort of thing. And I found my role, living here in Minnesota, helpful to that by spending weeks, often weeks at a time, in her house, cooking, cleaning, and getting to know my mother in a new way, in her 90s, and seeing the cadence of the day, the rhythm of her movements in the kitchen, and just coming to watch all of this. And then suddenly, she became a fall risk, and she had to leave the house and move in with my brother down the road a little bit. And all of her things remained in the house, and she was suddenly gone. This is called departure. They must be mystified. The sudden silence of the house, the darkness stretching on in their closed cupboard. They listen for her walker wheel rolling on the clean linoleum, the tick of her wedding ring on the cupboard door handle. And they wait for her hand itself to set them spinning in their orbits around her in the bright kitchen, to the table, to the sink, to the shock of water, then the rack and back. Every day for decades, this unstinting pattern, and her need of them granted them some tiny measure, these plates, granted them a bit of sentience, a chipped, one-note voice. Now, in this quiet eclipse, they wonder, they whisper to each other, where's the sun? Again, thank you. I'm, as I mentioned, I'm from a cornfield in Illinois, literally where I grew up, and loved, even as a kid and then as an adult, to walk the fields all year round, especially in winter. And this was called snowfall. You trusted the ice for miles as you walked, believed the chemistry, the carpentry of hydrogen and oxygen, hammered by January, would hold you and all you carry above the field's deep snows. But had you looked back, would you have noticed your own footprints grooving deeper and deeper into the crust? When it gives in beneath you, your throat is a burst pipe, and you spray panic across the field because your plunge could be a few inches or a few hours, and in that instant, your body does not know which. You windmill, fling the worry and fright you've carried so long into the wind that's come all the way from Canada to catch your loss. The gristle of crystals smacks your jaw. But as you lie there, remember how freedom rushed on you. We, as Marg mentioned, I had a master's from Hamlin, and cannot rave enough about the program that I got there. One excellent teacher after the other. And there are teachers in this room, and you know that you change lives. And mine was changed there by one in particular. And so this one is called Gratitude for Sheila. It'll hurt a little when you start. Send it anyway, that first root. Ask it into the dark outside the shell. Too soon it will hit rock, and of course it will double back in doubt. But pray, this is all prayer. Pray it finds that single vein. And without permission, without thought, let it plunge into what you were meant for, what you were called to, what you need. The yes will jolt what has slept in you all this time. Now, send leaves up. This too will hurt a little. The gravel above will stymie, bewilder. But can you feel the sun's hands, how they reach into the dark to pry, pull, and call? Your worries, will the rains come? Will the frost sting and kill? Shove gently by these. Dream into the blue. Let your leaves spread wider, surprised to touch all the others planted here, loved here, wished for by that same good hand. One more, actually two more, and this one has a little show and tell. That's the big screen here. There are magnificent composers everywhere in Minnesota, and particularly in the Twin Cities. One of them, a number of years ago, asked several writers if they would help him create an extended work for choir. And his name is Tim Takash. And he asked each writer to take the voice of a planet in our solar system. He was going to create a multi-movement work called Helios, which is Greek for sun. And so he asked all these different writers, pick your planet. And either I was the slowest one in the group, not a surprise there. The only one left after everyone picked one was Earth. So this is Earth, only here. My skies blaze and dazzle with ice. Lava burns in my veins. All the glories of the gods are here, but no gods gave me their name. Mars may boast about war, but only here are their blades, and only here blood-stained soil. Venus may preach on love, but only here does an eye meet an eye, and whole new heavens are born. Only here is there spring, only here the breath of the rose, only here is there miracle, suffering, and awe. And only here do they kneel in prayer. And this piece was premiered in 2019. COVID came, and then as we were moving through COVID, I got an email from Tim, the composer, out of the blue, said, "Hey Brian, would you write he calls it a poem, would you write that out longhand and take a picture of it and send it to me?" Okay, that's weird. But I did it, so I just wrote it out, exactly what you just heard, my kind of chicken scratchy thing. And this is what came of it. And I was here and tested this almost an hour early. It worked great. Speaking of prayer.
No signal.
Come on. make sure that the sound is still doing what I want it to do. Is that part of it? Yep. Okay. even though most of my writing is done just for myself, to be able to turn and have something completely different, to have a composer take these little scribblings you do and turn it into something like that, that's the best writing I can ever do. It's just so satisfying to collaborate like that. I'll leave you with one last thing, but before then, let's give Marg a hand for hosting. It's a lot of work, and I really appreciate it, yeah. So this is one that I didn't write, but I'll send it out as kind of a benediction and an encouragement to us all. This is by Ann Porter, called Living Things. Our poems are like the warthogs in the zoo. It's hard to say why there should be such creatures. But once our life gets into them, as sometimes happens, our poems become living things. And there's no arguing with living things. They are the way they are. Our poems may be rough or delicate, little or great, but always inside them there is a confluence of cries and secret languages. And always they are improvident and free. They keep a kind of Sabbath. They play on sooty fire escapes and window ledges. They wander in and out of jails and gardens. They sparkle in the deep mines. They sing in the breaking waves. And they rock like wooden cradles. Once our life gets into them, it sometimes happens. Our poems become living things. May we all keep creating living things.
Well, thank you again, everyone, for coming. I hope you'll stick around and speak with our poets and with one another and continue to enjoy the evening here. Don't forget that Jane has a couple of books here you can take a look at. For those who would like to join us over at Sweeney's on Dale, the evening will continue, so we hope some of you will do that. Thank you again. All four poets up here. Next month's reading is on June 11th. It's always the second Thursday of the month. And the poets will be Greg Watson, Peg Guilfoyle, Mike Hazard, and Margaret Todd Maitland. So hope you'll come back, and we'll see you then. Thank you.